Hi, I'm Veronica, a somatic yoga teacher and a Thai massage therapist. And today I would like to show you a sequence where you really wake up your legs and then you connect them, they start talking to the rest of the body. And we're going to do it lying down, but you might find that it's easier to do some of these moves when you fold the mat and stay either on a carpet or on a wooden floor instead. So for now, let's roll down. And as you're here, you can first bring your knees towards the body and start rolling. And then keep your legs completely relaxed and use your hands to move the knees in space. It could be circles, it could be spirals, but that already starts that conversation between the thigh bone and the hip socket. And at the same time, it's a nice massage for your sacrum. Land with one foot on the mat, with the other foot on the mat. And then we begin with a movement of moving the knee out to the side and then bringing it back to the center. So the other leg stays perfectly still, stays where it was, and only this one moves. And you could add the breath to that. Exhale when you lower the knee, and inhale when you bring it back. And there are many things you could pay attention to with this movement. So you are rolling onto outer edge of the foot. There's something happening in your hip when you move that leg out. You can always take a pause when the leg is out for a moment. And then bring it back, and again take a pause when it's back up. Now you could add to that sliding movement of stretching the leg out until it's completely straight. And you could work on that rotation of the leg coming from the hip, moving it out and bringing it back, rolling it out and bringing it back. Pay attention that it's not the movement of the foot, it's not what the ankle does, it's the entire leg. It starts from the hip itself. So you let it roll out and then bend the knee and slide that outer edge of the foot along the mat or along the floor. You will notice maybe you already want to shift in such a way that the foot slides on the floor directly and not on the mat, and that would be more comfortable. So you could now add these two movements. Move the knee out, let the leg slide out, let it relax, and then rotate it outward, bend the knee, and land with the foot on the mat. So you have that whole external rotation. And we're going to do everything on one leg first so that you can really feel the difference with the other leg. So now you could keep your feet wider apart, as wide as the mat or maybe even wider depending on the length of your legs. And then let your knee drop inwards so that you're landing on the inner edge of the foot. And that will lift your hip a tiny bit. And then let that foot land back, so that both knees are again pointing straight up to the ceiling. So again, you could exhale when you lower your knee inwards and inhale when the knee returns. And then at some point you could slide that inner edge of the foot until the leg is straight. So now you could work on that inner rotation of the leg. Again, it's not something that your foot does. It doesn't start from the foot. It starts from the hip itself. Roll the leg in and you can release it. And the next time you roll it in, bend the knee and slide that inner edge of the foot along the floor so that the heel comes towards your buttock. Your hip will lift as a result, and you see, notice what happens. I automatically let that other knee drop. So see if it's possible at all to let that happen only from this side of the leg and hip, and keep the other knee still pointing up towards the ceiling. So it's a inner rotation. You might find that your foot doesn't want to slide much. To make it slide even better, you could keep your sock on, at least for this one. But it's quite interesting to notice which moments make us stuck. This is a quite important information about where are the possible restrictions. Your head might be rolling so that it starts pointing towards that foot. If that happens, naturally, let it happen. And then you could create a sort of circle out of that. So the leg drops in, you slide the inner edge along the floor, and then you rotate it outward, bend the knee, slide the outer edge of the foot along the floor towards the hip, and the foot lands. So the other leg still doesn't move at all, and this one makes this sort of circle, which involves not only rotation around its own axis, but also bending and extending the knee. So the other one still is perfectly quiet, it doesn't do anything, and this one works as a whole. You could do it a couple of times and then rest for some time, observing the difference in the sensations in that left leg as compared to the right leg. And then there are a couple of things you could do with that leg when it's in the air. So you could create that spiraling motion. There is a separate video about the spiraling of the legs. A spiraling motion with your ankle so that that leg again rotates around its own axis. And then once the leg is up, you could first point the foot and move your toes in both directions. That means curling them under towards the sole of the foot and spreading them wide. You could do it a couple of times. And then you could flex your foot and again curl the toes under and spread the toes wide a few times. And we haven't really done the rotation of the ankle itself yet, so why not doing it when the leg is in the air? Circles of the ankle itself, and the rest of the foot doesn't, rest of the leg, sorry, doesn't move. And then you could reach with that heel far away from the from you, but at the same time keep the weight of that leg deep into the hip bone, and then slowly, slowly move that leg away, 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 and then let it land. Let it land and notice how it feels. How is the sensation of that entire leg from the toes all the way to the hip? And just for a comparison, you could stretch out that other leg. Notice the difference. How one is lying in contact with the ground. How is the other one feeling in contact with the ground? And then bend both knees and let the feet rest on the ground again. So I'm going to repeat all of that on the other side, and you don't really need to move anywhere, but just so that you have a better visual, I'm going to turn around so that you can have a good look at that other leg. And if you already knew that it was better for you to get that uh, sliding surface for your leg, you could be more towards the edge of your mat so that your foot can be later sliding on a more slippery surface. So you begin here, and then you can start moving your knee, and it's important that you don't drop it. So I'm not doing this. I'm not letting the leg drop. It's a gradual, smooth process of moving the knee out to the side, wherever it wants to land. So also I'm not pushing it all the way. There's no push there. I let it land where it wants to land and let it stay for a second before I bring it with the inhalation back. Okay? So the exhale is for that slow lowering. Inhale for bringing that leg back up. With a short pause and making sure that everything switches off at the end of each one of these movements. And then I want to add to that. So next time the knee moves out, I can slide that foot away until the leg is straight. Let it rest. Roll it in, roll it out. And again, bend the knees, slide the foot along the floor and land with the foot on the mat. And you might notice and start playing with it that depending on which part of the body you begin this movement from, it's gonna feel different. You could first roll onto outer edge of the foot and let your leg follow. And it's really the foot that pulls you. And the foot starts the movement, and it's the foot that brings that leg back towards you, and the foot that lands first. But it will be different sensation if you start with the knee, if it's the knee moving out, the knee straightening, the knee rolling out, the knee bending, right? And the knee coming up towards the ceiling. It will be a different movement if you focus more on the hip, rotating outward, moving that leg from the hip forward, rotating, moving that leg back in, starting from that hip hinge. Each of these movements is going to feel slightly differently in your body. And then you decide which one you want to stick with for today, or maybe you want to play and keep on mixing. Then you can keep your feet wider apart and let your inner edge of the foot drop towards the floor, or in other words, let your knee drop in, or in other words, Let your leg rotate internally, coming from the hip. And then on the inhale, you return. So again, as before, you could begin that movement from the foot, you could begin it from the knee, you could begin it from the hip. And the other leg doesn't move at all. The other half of the pelvis doesn't do anything. It's just this side of the pelvis and this leg working out. And after a couple of movements like that, you could slide that foot away until the leg is straight. Okay. And then you could, let me stay in vision, roll the leg in, bend the knee, and then slide that inner edge of the foot towards you. It might happen that automatically your head starts rotating inwards. And then slowly slide that leg forward and let the leg rest. See if you can keep that other leg immobile. Roll the leg in, whole leg, not just ankle, entire leg starting from the hip. Bend the knee and slide that inner foot, bring that heel closer towards the buttock. Your hip will lift on that side. And then slowly slide that foot away and let your leg relax. And again, roll in, bend, slide. You could look at that foot and then slide it away and release. That's when you can begin with that sort of circle, rotating the entire leg out, bending the knee, bringing the heel towards the buttock, and then letting the knee drop inwards and sliding that inner edge of the foot away until the leg is straight. Then you can again roll it out, bend the knee, bring the heel towards the buttock, land with the whole foot on the mat, and land on the inner edge of the foot so the knee comes in, slide the foot away, and so on. So drawing that large circle with the right leg, paying attention to what you would like to initiate this movement with. Is that the foot? Is that the knee? Or the hip? Each one of them is gonna feel different. And you could try all of them. And perhaps even stay with the one that feels most challenging. And then eventually land with the sole of the foot, so that again you are in that constructive rest with both feet on the mat. And then lift the foot off the ground. You could again begin with that little knee circles and then wake up the spiral starting from the heel. So this movement is a movement of the leg around its own axis. It's not the leg making circles in the air, that's a very different movement. It's a movement of the leg around its own axis. It starts from the heel and it travels around down the leg. So if you had the hands on your leg, you would feel that it's really rotating around its own axis, that it's moving right, left, yes? And that movement goes all the way to the hip joint. And then once you're up, you let the weight of that leg sink deep into the hip joint. And then you could start waking up your toes. So first the foot is pointed up towards the ceiling and you could extend and curl under the toes, and then you could flex the foot and again extend and curl under the toes. And then make a couple of ankle rolls, checking that this time there is no rotation in the calf. So your muscles will be engaging, but the leg doesn't rotate anymore. Yes, it's only the ankle. And then that heel starts reaching away, reaching away, reaching away, reaching away until the leg lands on the mat. When it lands, you could let it rest entirely. And stretch out the other leg as well. Notice how do they feel, how are the sensations in the foot, in the ankle, all along the leg, and especially that connection of the leg with the hip. And then we're going to do the windshield wipers, which will be including that internal and external rotation. It's usually nice to have the arms out to the side with this. And let's begin slowly, letting both knees drop to one side. And then on inhalation, bringing them back. And then letting both knees drop to the other side. And on inhalation, bringing them back. So you can already start noticing at this stage whether your head starts reacting to this movement or not. And where you're initiating this movement from. Most likely you begin with dropping the knees from side to side. How would it be if you started from the feet? It would be rolling onto inner edge of one foot, outer edge of the other foot, and then the leg follows, and then the hip follows. And then that movement travels up the spine, which causes your head to roll in opposite directions than your knees dropped. And then when you're coming back, again, start from the feet. It's the feet that begin, and then it's the legs that follow, the hips that follow. And as a result, the head comes back to the center. So you're rolling onto outer edge of the foot inner, and then the leg follows, the spine follows, and the head reacts to that. And again, something as if something was sucking your soles of the feet back to the floor. The leg follow, the hips follow, the spine follow. You could play with that. Sometimes starting with the knees, sometimes starting with the feet, or maybe even initiating it from somewhere else. Each one is gonna feel different. And after a couple of these, when you already feel that there is definitely that conversation going on between your legs, your hips and the spine, you could make that movement even bigger. So when your knees drop to one side, that leg which is on top, then it comes closer towards the other knee. And then it draws a big circle in the air. So it comes first towards one armpit, then it travels across, coming towards the other armpit. And that is when that leg itself, this is our leading leg, it starts pulling on that other leg, and it pulls it with it. So first one leg length and the other one follows. That's how you end up on the other side. So that leg which is on top now becomes the leading leg. The leg which is on top is the leading leg. So the knee reaches towards the other knee, and then you draw a big circle in the air. So that knee first comes towards one armpit, then across to the other armpit, and it keeps on reaching to the floor on the other side. That means that it pulls the other leg with it. It's not me moving that leg. I don't move it. This leg is passive. It's on holidays. It doesn't do anything. That other leg moves it. And there's this moment when this one can fall in as well as a result. And as it's on top, it's the leading one again. So whichever ends up on top is the leading one, and the other one then rests. The leading one draws a big circle in the air, the other one simply follows until the moment it's on top, and then this one becomes the leader and it draws a big circle in the air, pulling the other leg with it until both legs end in the other side. So that's how it goes. It's not the movement that you start with that other leg and you want to help. So it's not you are making this movement happen. The other leg doesn't do anything. The top one is leading, the other one follows. The top one is leading, the other one just follows. Okay? Keep on going, remembering not to switch on that other leg. And notice, of course, what happens to the rest of the body. There will be some reaction in the spine. There will be some reaction in your head. Let yourself be led by this movement. And that leg could lead you in other places. So instead of drawing a circle, it could lead you more forward, and that could bring you eventually to lying on the side. And then that foot could step back, and that's how you would roll onto your back again. So if both knees drop to one side, that leading leg, the top one, could move forward, and that will pull with it your hip, your spine, your head eventually. So you're ending somewhere on the side. And then you can come back the same way. The foot begins, then the hip follow the spine, follow the head follows, and you're back. So play with that, where that leg could lead you. How that leg could be the motor that starts moving the entire body. The leg moving the rest. And then release the arms by your sides. You could slowly stretch out one leg, stretch out the other leg. Stay here for a moment. Feeling all these connections between different body parts, how alive the legs and feet feel. And then you could reach with your legs down the mat with your arms over the head. And just for a moment, make that movement where the leg reaches in one direction and the arm in the other direction. But rather than focusing on your fingers and on the toes, you focus on where they start. So on your hip and on the shoulder. And that's how you're reaching alternately, creating more space between one side of the body and the other side of the body. Then you could stretch on your own in any way you feel, and if there's still a need to make yourself into a ball or roll, or again move your knees in the air before you finish, you could do that. And then roll to the side and stay here for a moment before you come up. I hope that you enjoyed that exploration of all these connections you have in your legs and how they can speak to the rest of the body. There are a couple of similar videos in my channel, so don't forget to check it out and to subscribe. See you next time.